kind of feeling this beat right now.
Dude, this is
Welcome
my
to
jam.
welcome to another episode of the Fray. My name is Derry. The Fray is a roundtable discussion about fighting games, the people who play them, and the events where they are featured. We have a rotating cast of characters and familiar faces for you guys each week. The panel this week, some old favorites and one new person joining us for the evening. Introducing first, returning to the show, you can follow him on Twitter at @Gutex, Ryan Gutierrez, aka Gutex. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Thank you for having me back.
Sure. Also joining us from the great state of Utah, we've got Martin Blake. You can follow him on Twitter at @Blu-ray. How are you, Martin?
Doing good. How you guys?
Good. Joining the program for the very first time ever, the internet's favorite person ever, Paul Kugler, the head and brain behind Broken Tier. Coogie, how are you, my friend?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
For sure. And then last but not least, we've got my broadcast partner, Magus1234. How are you?
Hanging in there, man. How you doing, Derry?
I am.
Nobody ever asks you how you do. How you doing, man?
I'm on death's door right now. I'm actually sick. So.
Yeah, you sound like your nose is plugged or some shit.
Yeah.
So.
Hopefully the stream will bear with us tonight as I try to soldier my way through this with the death flu. I'm patient zero for the T virus. But tonight we're going to talk about three big things to discuss. First, we're going to talk about the Evo donation drive. A little bit of controversy hitting the interwebs as the afternoon broke. It hasn't ended yet, but it will be ending tonight at midnight. We're also going to touch briefly on some of the news that was circulating today about Super Arcade. And we're going to talk a little bit about arcades, and that's going to lead us into our final topic of the night. And the main reason why we have Mr. Coogie here on the program, and we're going to be talking about fighting games and sustainability and sponsorship. But first, we're going to go right into what has been on everybody's mind lately, and that is the Evo donation drive for the 8th game to be featured on the Evo roster. For those of you guys that aren't aware, those of you at home can donate to a fund set up to raise money for breast cancer research in the name of one of a list of games, and whichever game ends up raising the most money is going to be the game that is featured as the 8th title at Evo. For most of this month that this thing has been going on, it has been a back-and-forth battle between Super Smash Bros. Melee and its devoted, die-hard, pimply-faced neckbeards, and
That's how you really feel.
and the pimply-faced neckbeards that populate the land of Skullgals. They were going back and forth for a long time, but then in the last 2 days, a shock donation, $35,000 from the pimply-faced neckbeards that play Super Turbo. So now we have a three-way tie, or not a tie right now. It's still Smash Brothers in the lead, but both Super Turbo and Skullgirls are kind of in shooting distance. Magus1234, I'm just going to ask you flat out, which of these three games you want to see, man?
Of course, I'd love to see some of the old dudes. There's a lot of Japanese guys who come every Evo that they had ST too. So there's a lot of international guys that like ST. There's a lot of dudes that play in the States that love ST, and it still has a pretty vibrant online scene. So that would be the game I'd like to see.
Martin, if you had to see one of these three games at Evo, which of these three games would you like to see played at Evo?
Well, kind of like what I said previously, that it's based on the community that I want to see there, and like what type of smells I want to have at Evo. And I think a Street Fighter community would have a better smelling community than Smash.
There are three unique bouquets. There's very rich aromas that originate from the three types of communities. Ryan, what do you think about some anonymous benefactor jumping forward and donating $35,000 in the last week?
I think it's very exciting. I just hope it's legit. I mean, I guess there's some question as to the legitimacy of said donations based on the email addresses that were used. But hopefully, the donations are legit, and I guess ST will have a fighting chance.
Paul, do you ever feel like, I mean, like the Smash community, for better or worse, they've taken a lot of abuse this past month. But really, what we're seeing right here is a community that's coming together. They want something. They're mobilizing themselves. They're being supportive of one another. They're having donation drives. They're getting out the word on forums and on Twitter and on Facebook. Would you be personally upset if Smash Brothers Melee was at Evo this year?
No, personally, I would actually be kind of excited to see that because I come from the Guilty Gear community, and Andre probably knows this also, that Guilty Gear got screwed every year, and I feel kind of I want Smash to do it for the same reason that I wanted Guilty Gear to be there, just to give them a chance, because they are very passionate. A lot of stuff on their own. They're not getting, sponsors to come in and help them. They're just their own little insular community, and they play their game well. It's not like ST where it hasn't been as popular in recent years. I mean, there's been a revival, but Smash has still been played nonstop for forever. So I'd be excited to see what they can bring to our community at Evo, especially.
Magus, do you feel like perhaps there were some loose ends that got missed with regard to some of the rules that got set for this sort of thing? Because beyond just ST and the accusations of perhaps fraudulent donations, there was some talk today about people making massive donations in the name of Smash Brothers, that if Smash Brothers did not get picked at EVO, they were going to dispute the charges with their credit card companies and claim fraud and basically get the money taken back. Do you think maybe...
Well, yeah. Well, if people could let me know how the mic is sounding right now, first of all. But I just think those are tactics. Those are high-level tactics they're putting in this matchup. And they got dealt a deck of cards. They got their hand, and they said this is what you're going to work with. And now they're implementing some high-level gameplay. And that's when you're set with this situation and you want your game to win. There wasn't a lot of rules that I saw. It just said, what, whoever gets the most money on this, and that's already going to be a disadvantage to some games. Like, maybe CVS2 has the most passionate, broke community in the United States. What are we going to do about it? Nothing. So it's like, you get these kids with mommy's credit cards, and they're like, I'm going to rake it up 5 clams and then dispute it, if we don't win, or even if we do win. So I don't know. I think you got to do what you got to do to get your game in there.
I saw today that Marlon Pie posted on Twitter. He said that you can't beat the Smash Brothers community because they get lunch money from their parents every day. They're pumping that money into the donation drive every day. So
yeah, that's right. That's smart stuff. And if I was at home, getting that money, I'd be like, dang, this is going right to Evo funds.
All right. So I'm just gonna quick for those of you guys that are keeping up at home. The donation drive will end tonight at midnight. So if you want to donate to a good cause, you can donate to breast cancer research in the name of whatever game that you're down with. If you want to donate in the name of a game that's actually in the running, it's going to be either Smash Bros, ST, or Skullgirls rounding out third, but it looks like Skullgirls is actually going to get dropped out probably fairly soon. But you can also still donate in the name, if you're a Guilty Gear guy, or if you're a Blaze Blue guy, if you're a Persona guy, or I'm sorry, not Persona, Dead or Alive guy, you can always throw some money out there and just sign it. Hey, this is for Guilty Gear, and if you don't give a shit about Super Turbo,
just do it regardless. It's for a good cause. Like I have family members who have went through breast cancer, and it's such a freaking painful experience on my end to go through that type of thing, but more even so for them. But I mean, talking about taking back your money or anything else like that, just remember that this is for a good cause. So donate to whatever you want. Just remember that your money is going to something that's really important.
For sure. Yeah, and just to touch on that very briefly, if you see somebody out there talking about taking their money back, just ignore them. That's not even worth your time to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean that's not. I mean, I was just kidding with.
No, of course.
Right. I don't think that's really ethical even, and I think that's kind of disturbing that people would do that in the name of a game. But definitely any donations and like Hugi said, the games that have been stuffed every year and have had issues, this is your chance, and may the best game win, I guess.
Speaking of supers, some news broke today. Watson on Mike Watson, the proprietor of Super Arcade, was um, requesting donations to help keep Super Arcade afloat. I think he's requesting, somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think he's requesting about $5,000 between now and February, the middle of February, to tie up some loose financial ends at Super Arcade, or else the arcade is basically going to go belly up. Gutex, are you surprised to hear that? It was kind of sudden for a lot of people to hear that the arcade's not doing that well.
Yeah, I mean, they were in the from my understanding, there's... Well, I don't really know how much I can say, actually. But basically, yeah, I was surprised. I thought everything was going fine with the transfer of ownership. It's really an unfortunate situation because Super Arcade is basically the last arcade standing here in SoCal. But I mean, you know, it's a tough fight because the idea of putting coins into a machine to play, I think, is, you know, quickly going away, even though I still think that the idea of people wanting to play in person is not going anywhere.
Kugi, do you agree with Gutex that the business model of the pay-to-play video game arcade is kind of antiquated and maybe doesn't work anymore?
They should just try to copy League of Legends. I mean, they make money, right? But yeah, arcades are they're going the way of the dodo, unfortunately. It's just, there's competition with free games like League of Legends, PC gaming, console gaming. It's just like, why go to an arcade? Especially with online, it's really difficult.
It's actually a really fascinating idea that I had not considered before. Magus, do you think that if more arcade games featured content like what you see with League of Legends, where you can get customizations for your characters, like what you possibly have in Tekken or something like that, do you think somebody might chuck in an extra quarter or an extra 50 cents into the machine if they can get like a customized costume for their character at the arcade?
I mean, you'd have to make a good game first in order for that to happen. So, you know, that's kind of a primary issue. Is you have to have a game good enough for people to want to go out and play. For games that have been out for a while now, you know, the scene's kind of in a weird quagmire where it's like Ryan and Kugi said that, you know, people want to come out and physically play versus people because the internet is not yet, the technology has not met up with the needs of the people yet. But the concept of going and paying, let's say, you know, $1 for a game, which is probably what you would need for these machines to recoup the initial financing, that people just don't want to do. And it's like, you spend $10 a day going to an arcade, and that's 10 matches. Let's say you lost every one. And, you know, as opposed to just staying home playing League of Legends or whatever the hell you want to play for free all day. And you know, personally, you know, I come from an arcade background, so the games are just ingrained in me, and that's going to love. And then, you know, I always love Street Fighter. I always put money and whatnot. But I could totally understand somebody looking at that and just being like, no way, why the hell am I going to drive, spend $1 million to get there, and then, you know, $20 just to play for a couple hours? So I don't know. It's a weird spot.
Martin, we all live in the Bay Area, or Gutex is in SoCal. Kugi lived in California for a bit, or a long time. You're out there in Utah, where I don't think there's really a lot of arcades of this type. When you hear about stuff like this, does it not sound a little bit like just stuff that really doesn't affect most fighting at all? I mean, like, honestly, what do people who live in places like Kansas care if Super Arcade goes under? Does it really matter if Super Arcade goes out of business at all?
Well, I think being here in Utah is kind of like we're living in the future of things to come for places like, you know, California and for New York with arcades that are still around. Because right now, we were in that position about 10 years ago, and now it's switching over to places where they're becoming more family fun arcade oriented, skee ball, they need tickets and all that stuff like that, where kids want to come and play. I mean, they do have the traditional setups with Third Strike and Marvel, but you barely see anyone on them, and what's sad is that even if you do, the cabinets are not maintained, and so people don't want to play on them because the sticks are broken, the buttons are broken. Other arcades here in Utah are switching to the way of online play, where you can come in, except their arcade cabinet would be a computer console with all these PC games, and you can come play by the hour. And so it's kind of like seeing the future of these old arcades are going to have to start to turn in order to turn a profit. Where in Japan it's kind of different altogether because they are doing those microtransaction type of things where you can go and play Persona using your Nesca card and pay 99 cents to have glasses or things like that. It's actually doing pretty well there, but we don't have that type of networking like Nesca has in Japan, and that's what's really hurting arcades here.
Could I interject for one moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the major problems with arcades in general is, and this has been touched on in the past, that the cost of the machine and the profitability per machine it's never grown to meet the cost. So like arcade machines originally might have cost like $3,000, let's just say, to get a Street Fighter 2 board, plus the cabinet, plus the controller. You charge 25 cents a game, and you'd have kids lined up around the block, and that made money, right? And then to increase the amount of money that they made, they charge more for the cabinets. Well, then the kids stop lying around the block and costs, and then they can't say, okay, well, we're going to start charging. They don't have bill feeders on Street Fighter 2 cabinets, so you have to put 4 quarters in, and like there's been studies that show that more times you have to put a coin in, the less likely someone is to actually play a game to begin with. So it's this psychological element to it also, beyond just like, the increased cost of going to an arcade, driving there, meeting up with your friend, playing the game there when you can do it at home. It's really difficult. It's a compounding problem.
So what's stopping, not arcades, but I guess I would say, what's stopping like the business model of, like LAN centers of the past, but kind of with a side of console setups? Like if you had a wall of Asus's with basically, every fighting game on the consoles, and you could just sit down and play, but there's some other way to pay to make the place survive. Like, why has that never been tackled?
Well, I don't know for sure, but I mean, if you think about it, like the business models in the past they never rely on console gaming. They always rely on what the place is about. It's a LAN gaming center. The business owners have built it around PC gaming. The console stuff is just kind of thrown to the side. It's not marketed heavily. It's not drummed up and made a big deal. So you have places that are like Next Level, where that is kind of the point of going to Next Level. I've never been there, but from watching Spooky stream, it seems like the point of going to Next Level is not the arcade cabinets. It's more so playing console games with your friends. And they have the flexibility of putting in whatever game, wherever, if typing Warcraft, it's easier to increase that way. It's organic, unless in the base of the day.
Sorry, man. You're breaking up. Yeah.
Get a sentinel face in there. There he is.
I'm just going to interject there on that point and talk a little bit about how that's. I think a lot of people kind of have that idea that maybe it would be a good idea to move the arcade type gaming environment to a console direction and to have just a dedicated space where people can come and play fighting on consoles. But the secondary problem with that is that the LAN center is a dying breed. I mean, if you grew up in the South Bay, you're probably familiar with places like UFNet, which used to have 4 places in the South Bay. They used to have 4 locations in the South Bay, and now they have the one. And it's really just kind of dinky, and they don't really do anything with it anymore. And so, like, the LAN center model is kind of falling away too, as people just become more comfortable gaming at home, and the connections get better. People like to play at home, and
I think we're oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think that the issue is not that people don't want to play with other people in person. It's that the venues haven't caught up to the current state of what the customer is actually looking for. For example, Insert Coins in Las Vegas, right, has the whole bar arcade idea going. Now, if we were to take a similar concept and apply that in an area that had a large fighting game presence, like, I think that's something that would go over pretty well. For example, bar fights this past weekend is not a tournament, but we had setups, casual setups for people to play, and the stations are full and packed all night. So is it that people don't want to play in person, or is it that there is this other need that is currently not being filled, and that's why it appears as though people don't want to play in person, and that they just want to play at home? But if we were to change the environment a little bit and change it for our crowd, because let's face it, right? Most of the people that are playing fighting games are not like kids. They're all, dudes in their 20s that, have jobs and, like to go out and drink and have fun and stuff. So maybe if there were venues that were catering to that, then we would see kind of like a revival.
Magus, do you agree with what Ryan is saying here? I mean, I know you're a guy who first started going to arcades when you were a young teenager. Same with me. Same with most of these guys, probably. But now, like Ryan says, most of us are in our 20s. Some of us are in our 30s. Do you see the fighting game world regressing to the very beginning of arcades, where arcade machines were in bars and that's where you went to play Pac-Man and shit? I mean, do you see that as a possible direction for this community to go in?
I mean, sadly, it almost seems, even without people like Gutex actually organizing things like that, if nobody really takes the helm or nobody ever kind of takes a stab at a new business model, it's really just going to be relegated to playing online. And I mean, even I've been playing online more, and you know how much like I'm against online. Like I've literally been playing my first couple of games of Marvel online ever in the past, month. So it's one of those things where I feel like by the month, by the year, it's getting harder and harder to find a spot to play. And whereas when Street Fighter 4 was out, there was tons of sessions, maybe an arcade here and there that had the game. When CVS 2 Third Strike, ST all the way back, there was always arcades around every block to go to. But now we're in this kind of transitional period where there's no new game coming out in the foreseeable future that's going to grab a new audience of players that want to pick up Street Fighter, but there's still kind of lingering need to want to play and get better. So I don't know, it's just a strange situation, and I don't know, I don't have an answer for it.
Well, if you guys at home want to explore this topic a little bit further, you can check out the article that was posted on iPlayWinner.com today, written by Paul, aka Super Effects. Paul is one of our editorialists, and he wrote an article that was it touched on the events at Super Arcade, but it also talks about arcades in general. Sustainability, the topic, we're going to shift from that to the main discussion, this sponsorship, sustainability, the fighting game community moving forward. I'm going to start out really simply. I'm going to go directly to Paul, and I'm going to ask you what your reaction was to the news about DMG releasing, or I don't know if they released him or if he's leaving, but Juicebox Abel no longer with DMG. We talked about this last week on the program, but it seems like DMG is kind of on its last legs. What is your reaction to hearing the news that a sponsor that was a featured sponsor for a lot of 2012 and some of 2011 is on its last legs going into 2013?
DMG. Well, damn, I don't know how real I can be about this right now. So,
hey man, you came on the show. You got to be real.
Is it real rap time? I guess.
Yes, be real, son.
Be as real as you want, Coogie.
I never considered DMG a sponsor. I never considered them a team.
Oh, that's crossing the line, man.
I considered them just like, and I mean, it's nothing. This goes into my head. I mean, I'm very much into the scene and the way that I look at teams and things like that. I felt like it was more of a group of players that agreed to have a handle. That was the way I felt when I looked at their organization. I had never heard about them taking care of their players in terms of financially, like taking them to tournaments. They may have, but just from what I've heard a lot of mixed things. So when I heard that they went under, it's just like, well, okay, I guess. Oh, I'm going to get in a lot of shit for that. But that's just my true opinion about it. And I may be wrong, and I don't want you guys to think that that's the truth. It's just my opinion.
No, and I think that there's been a lot of talk about instability with sponsorships in the scene. DMG is just the latest group to kind of fade away. This is actually the second time that Juicebox Abel's sponsors specifically has faded away. Previously, he was Hands Gaming, and those guys kind of slipped out the back door. I think the thing that they have in common is that a lot of these groups are not groups that have a product or service that they're offering per se. They're just kind of like a stable of players. They're like a posse almost, where they're not marketing a product like Mad Cats or Broken Tier, or they're not serving as a marketing vessel for other sponsors like Evil Genius does with sponsors like Intel and SteelSeries. They're just kind of there sending players out, and then some sponsored players do have contracts where they kick back a little bit of their winnings back to the sponsor in exchange for flight and hotel. And I think that's not maybe a sustainable thing. Magus, do you think the viability?
Well, here's my kind of, if I could just put something out there, maybe directed towards Paul or just to the panel in general. But if I'm late teen 20 something, I'm broke as a joke, and I love playing Street Fighter, and I really want to pursue it more, and I want to travel, I want to meet people, but I just don't have the means to do it. And somebody like Damage or whatever alphabet sponsor approaches me and they're like, pretty good, we know these guys, we can't pay for everything, but we can give you a couple bucks to make it easier and send you out to a couple tournaments, and is a player, how should I approach that? Like, that's kind of what I want to ask Paul, maybe Ryan as well, who know a little more about sponsorship. Should I look at an opportunity like that and be like, man, this is just not going to be worth my time? Should I look for more? Or should you just say, screw it, this is the best thing I'm going to get?
Ryan, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Okay, I'll bite. It really depends on what your strengths are as a player. For example, some players are really good at winning tournaments. Some players are really good at producing content. I don't think that you have to be, and I think I'm like a walking, talking example of this. Like, when I was sponsored by Complexity, that was not in the heyday of my Street Fighter 4 career, right? But it really didn't matter because Gutex, as a personality or a player or whatever, has value outside of winning tournaments, in the sense that I'm able to produce content and command like a relatively large audience. So as an up-and-coming player, you have to decide, well, am I going to go, let's say, the content road, or am I going to just go the straight tournament winning road? And I think that road is a lot harder. But either one is fine, and it really just depends on the player understanding their strengths and how they want to be in one direction or another.
Coogie, let's get your follow-up to Magus's inquiry. We still have Mr. Kugler on the call.
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. I'm muting it every time I'm not talking.
That's good.
So here's the catch-22 that you have to think about, is if you put letters in front of your name, you immediately are less interesting to sponsors, potentially. For example, I really wanted Marlon Pie on my team for a long time, and out of respect to AG, I never approached him, because I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go snipe people. I just don't see the point. I think it's rude. We're not at that stage of business where we're throwing out our contracts, where that's necessary. So because he was on AG, I could have potentially sponsored him a year before that, but because he had those initials in front of his name, I was like, well, I'm not interested. Did he gain anything on AG? I don't know. That's up to him. So that's one side to look at it. The other side is more so along the lines of, why are you on a team? Can you provide something for them? Can they provide something for you? If it's mutual, then go for it. Why the hell not? If, for example, you have a friend who's into video editing, and he's like, hey man, I want to start ABC. It's going to be the coolest group ever, and I really want a player to help learn how to make videos, and then I can promote you, and you can promote me, and it'll be a mutual relationship. Well, then that's great, because maybe the player that is on now ABC isn't well known, but now he's going to become more well known. An example is, I think, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Finger Cramp, but Finger Cramp really came out of left field for me, and they had Jago. And I didn't really know either of those players before then, but because he was sponsored, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, who's this guy? And he started doing pretty decent in tournaments, and then Finger Cramp started producing videos, and it was like kind of a mutual benefit. You learned about Finger Cramp because of Jago, and Jago helped them produce content. So it's kind of like a good deal. So that's a case where it's like you should do it. In cases you shouldn't do it, or where it's like, hey, here's a free shirt, wear it for me, and then put these initials in front of your name, and I'm not going to do anything else for you.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. It's really upsetting because it was like, wow, if all I had to do was give these guys a free shirt, everybody would be on Team Cross Counter, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
Paul and Ryan, also what I'm hearing basically is it's not only up to these sponsors to do whatever they do. You're kind of also saying the players need to look into their own kind of bag of skills and whatever they have and kind of make themselves more useful.
Right,
Depends,
exactly.
Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if it depends on the type of team. Like, for example, Derry was talking about how teams like Broken Tier and Maggots have a product to sell, whereas a team like Evil Geniuses or Complexity is more of like a marketing agency that can give, let's say, exposure to big brands like Intel and Kingston, right? So you have to think, as a player, like, what sort of value do I bring to a sponsor? For example, Yipes, Marlin Pie, Dominion, Clockwork, these guys are all established, well-liked players in the community. So if Cookie puts a shirt on them, then sales of said shirt go up. But that doesn't they don't necessarily need to win tournaments every time in order for that value to be there. But let's say for somebody like Justin or Ricky or PR Balrog, right? Like, these guys, their model is winning tournaments or at least placing very, very highly consistently. And through wearing the shirts that have the sponsor logos on them, they provide value for the sponsors. But if they are not consistently winning, then I feel like they aren't necessarily generating as much value. Or maybe you don't even need to win, you just need to like be like visible. But if they were to fall off, then the sponsor is getting less value from them and thus would probably be less inclined to pay for travel.
I mean, there's already, not to call Flo out too much, but I mean, Flo hasn't really played in tournaments as much lately. And so a lot of people are like, well, why is Flo on AG? But it's like, it's funny because of I ask myself that also, and then I look at I want to play the guy streams. That's a great example of an unorthodox method of gaining view, being even.
You're breaking up again, sorry.
Paul, hold that thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can anybody else make sure their mic is muted in the back? Because a lot of times the interference will start cutting into other people's mics. So, Paul, go ahead and start that thought up again, and we'll just go ahead and mute our mics when you talk.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now? Am I turning into a robot?
It's perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I was trying to make is that like Ryan was talking about how EG sponsors people that win tournaments. That's their goal. But not necessarily, in my opinion. EG is they've said this numerous times. They're a marketing company. They are a niche marketing firm. They want to get sponsors and basically tell the sponsors, we're going to increase your views 250% and pay us this much and we'll do it. And they do that by sponsoring people that are very well known in the communities, or they're outrageous like Idra. They win everything, like that Korean guy. I don't know, his name, Jaedong or whatever. And Justin and PR Balrog and Ricky, they're all just amazing players. But then you got Flo, and it's like Flo, I love him to death. He dodges me at Guilty Gear every time because he knows I'll whoop his ass. But he touches a different market compared to the rest of the players. He touches a casual market, which is ridiculous because he's a good player. But doing the I Want to Be the Guy streams, he found this interesting niche that existed before, but he almost perfected it without any effort. And I always found that really interesting.
Let me. Sorry, just one little tidbit, Paul. Do you think the Wong Factor T-shirt is the greatest fighting game T-shirt of all time?
You're an asshole for even asking me that.
Oh, you love it.
Let me stay on that topic for a second and throw some love out to the rest of the community. Martin, who are your players out there making content right now that you really are interested in, as far as like guys that maybe don't necessarily finish in the top 8 of every tournament, but are making really great content that you enjoyed to watch or to read?
I mean, they don't refer to themselves as a team, but I would like to say Team Spooky, definitely. I mean, they're not placing the top all the time, but I mean, they're producing a lot of awesome content that I think other teams should be looking at. And yeah, they've been doing an amazing job at that.
We've got other examples in the community. There's Hanzo Gonzo with his combo videos, and they have another talk show. I think it's called The Show That Sucks here on the iPlayWinner YouTube channel. There's guys like Mike Ross, who I would never call Mike Ross a slouch, but I mean, he's not, winning every major. He does well, but I mean, these days he's more known for things like, Cross Counter Live and his new show, his Neighborhood or whatever. Magus, do you have any players that you're kind of just like, maybe not, they're not the best at winning tournaments, but they're just kind of cool guys that make good stuff?
I think you guys named a lot. I do think we need more. Even people like Max do a good job. Maximilian do a great job of kind of making content who necessarily aren't tournament monsters and stuff like that. Yeah, and just anybody who's helping out streaming and streams their locals and stuff like that. All the guys at Team Hazmat and stuff like, people who are literally just streaming, showing the visibility of their community to others, which is really cool for me because when I get to go to majors and commentate, which is something I love doing, I already have a little bit of a backstory and understanding of their community, and seeing areas are cooking up and playing, and STL Bar Wars and stuff like that. There's a lot of kind of local scenes that have kind of their underground heroes that are organizing events and keeping their scene alive. Because we all know how surprisingly fragile scenes can be, and a lot of times they're almost put on the shoulders of like one or two people, and nobody really realizes it.
I'm going to move back towards Paul, touching on that concept of players that create content, players that engage beyond just going to a tournament and sitting down at a monitor and playing their match. Do you feel as if the traditional model of the sponsor who just sends a player out and the player plays, does that even work anymore? Or do you need players who can give you more as a sponsor than just going to tournaments and winning? Do you need someone who can write articles or create videos on your roster?
Well, I think it depends on the player's strengths and the organization's strengths. One of the key things about sponsorship, people treat it as an end goal. Like, I'm going to become good, and then I'm going to get sponsored, and that's the end of the story. My opinion on it, being a team leader and running Broken Tier and everything else, is I view it as the first step into improving yourself from a business standpoint. So taking a good player and saying, let's just say player or Johnny Donuts. Johnny Donuts, my favorite player. You know, you're really good at winning tournaments, but man, you suck at talking to people. You know, your interview skills are really whack. We need to work on that, you know, if you want to be sponsored. So him being sponsored and being sent to tournaments by my organization, I can be like, all right, I want you to try to work on this. This will help you in the future. This will also help me because then you can promote my stuff, do whatever, and we're going to make you a better person in the future. So if you leave my organization in the future for whatever reason, you're not the same Johnny Donuts you were when you came in. And hopefully for the best. You know, the way I approach it is I don't want them to be leaving in a bad way. I want to try to improve everyone, especially. And you work with the strengths.
Well,
I mean,
as a
like
follow-up,
sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question, actually, real quick for Paul.
go ahead.
Is there anything you do in particular, like when you sign someone up, do you also tell them, okay, you need to make a Twitter account, you need to start? Do you have any requirements for them, or do you like? Is there anything in particular that you have your players do for exposure? And
In the beginning, no. In the beginning, I was just like, let's let it rock. Let's just, you know, be yourself or whatever. I realized very quickly that left to their own devices, players that don't understand business will continue not to understand business. They'll just do the things that they've done before. And so I try to guide them and say, hey, you know, get a Twitter account, be more active in the scene. You know, if you like writing articles, write articles. Or if you like making tutorials, make tutorials. Get your name out there because it helps you and it helps Broken Tier. And I think that it's worked better this way. You know, Vasan has been writing more articles and Yipes has been streaming more, and I'm trying to get Dominion to do the same. And, you know, I think it's a happy thing.
Magus, do you feel as if that lack of personality marketing is what's holding back players like Infrit, who are quality players, who are Evo caliber players who can't seem to buy a sponsorship right now?
Well, he did get sponsored, but
Oh, really?
yeah, he did.
I missed that.
That's okay, but I think I think
it
that's
took a while though.
Yeah, it's a valid point. To me, I think, you know, is the way Paul is saying it, though, a lot of these players are kind of just playing games. They don't even really see another aspect of it outside of the screen and the controller. But it takes, you know, somebody to guide them and somebody to be kind of like a teacher in that aspect of the business aspect of things, and also kind of maybe just getting them a new skill set and just seeing something outside of basically the play, you know, just playing the game and saying, look, there's more to it than that. If you want to kind of coexist and be in a position where you're flown out and help me as a business, you need to also put something in that isn't just playing. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't even want to do that, or they just don't know how, or they don't even know where to start. So it's really tough for anybody to kind of break. Like if I wanted to get really into gaming again and say, man, you know what, I can't afford flying out, but I really want to go to these tournaments. Like if you asked my, you know, early 20s self how to make content, how to make videos and stuff, of what I should make and stuff like that, it'd be really tough. So I think it's an issue, but it's probably, you know, more of a widespread issue in any gaming circle, not just, you know, Street Fighter, really.
Gutex, if you had to give advice to players out there who are doing well at tournaments but can't seem to attract the attention of legitimate sponsors, if you had to give them some advice on other areas to work on or other things they could possibly do to get that attention as far as that element of personality marketing goes, what advice would you give players like that?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess I would suggest to just follow the cross-counter model, right? Like what we've done over the past couple of years should be very easy to deconstruct and piece together. I mean, you look at Finger Cramp, right? Like, shout outs to those guys for copying the entire thing, right? But,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, well, God, where do I start? It's such an issue, but, like, you just have to think, well, what am I good at, right? Like, just because, you know, some people aren't good on camera, some people aren't good talkers, but if you're really that good at the game, you should be able to, like, lay out your thoughts and organize it. And let's say it's like a tutorial, like, you know, there's plenty of videos out there with no word faces. I mean, no talking and no like faces on camera, and there's still like quality videos. But I think it really comes down to trying to build up your own like presence. You know, build up your, and the way that you do that in this day and age, aside from winning tournaments, is producing content. You know, and it's not everybody. The worst part, I can tell you exactly what not to do. Do not copy Excellent Adventures. Nobody gives a shit. The only reason why that worked was because Mike and I were already well known in the community, not because that was not how we became well known. You know what I mean? There's like a difference. But creating genuinely valuable content, right? Like for example, character tutorials, right? Why I ran into this problem last night. I try to learn a new character in Cross Tekken, right? Like Elisa and Jack X, right? Where are all the resources for Elisa and Jack X? Am I literally the only one that wants to play these characters? No. But for some reason, there's no 10-minute, 15-minute tutorial that shows me how to do this. So if you're a talented player, look at the holes in all the games that you're good at, the content holes, and see, well, can I make a tutorial on these characters? Will this add value? And then you hit up a guy like me and you say, hey, Gutex, look at what I can do. This is what I made. And I say, this is amazing. And then I say, hey, do you want to put this on the Cross Counter channel? And then boom, now instead of getting like 100 views to your video, now you get like a couple thousand, and now everybody's like, oh, Johnny Donuts is the best Jack X player because he made this tutorial. And now you're like, you have this forward momentum. And of course, the flip side, the other benefit of doing that is that as you build your audience, you're able to go down the road of being self-sustainable, because you're, let's say, partnered with YouTube or partnered with a network like Fullscreen, and then you're streaming, and then you partner up with Twitch. You know what I mean? Like building these assets, which take a lot of time, can be beneficial, because as you start to generate value, you start to generate more income.
Okay, so quick question though, and we know that people like you and Paul have done a really amazing, innovative job in the fighting game scene, and you know, I think it's really cool that it's even possible. And people like Spooky and Team Spooky have really come together. You know, I Play Winner to some extent's done the same, not so much with players, but do you think outside of that, though, outside of these kind of existing groups, is it even worth trying to A, get sponsored, B, trying to create a team as a company, or let's say as a small business guy? Let's say I'm just a up and coming stick producer. Paul, do you think it's even worth it? Is there a way to do it right? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Do you want a short answer or a long answer?
Well, we have time, so.
Most dramatic answer.
Short answer is get a job, play fighting games for fun. If you get good at them, practice more. If you're not good at them, focus on a job right now. We are not, if your goal with a sponsorship is to make money, unless you have figured out the magic, like, I don't know, pot at the end of the rainbow, you're not going to make a lot of money. If your goal is to get fame and glory, Daigo style, then yeah, go for it. It's fun. You have to really look at your priorities and figure out what you're trying to go for. If you're just trying to get to tournaments, it's not that hard. You know, I know there's some people that just, they work their job, they ask for Fridays off, they go to the tournament, they get back to work on Monday, and that's good enough for them. They are their own sponsor. It was what was the joke Sanchez made? It's I have a day job as my sponsor. Something like that. And I mean, it sounds stupid, but I mean, it's really in my opinion, the best way to go about it. Because this market that we're in right now is shaky. You know, I see a lot of people who want to drop out of college or do this and that to play games professionally. It's like, what does that mean? Unless you're playing League of Legends and you got on one of the Season 3 things, or you're sponsored by EG and you're making $80K a year in a salary, you're not making it professionally.
And even then, you know, you have to be realistic and say, okay, maybe I can make 80K one year, 70K the next year, and I only made, you know, 200K in 4 or 5 years when it all pans out. And then what am I going to do for the remaining
Exactly.
Decades
The-
of my life. Yeah.
The people who are marketing themselves as like the go-to people for a game right now, like, all right, here's two different examples. Johnny Donuts streams every day, gets donations on his stream, well-known person, does really well at tournaments. He makes $60K a year, right? That's not actually $60K a year. He's got to pay taxes, and if he doesn't pay taxes, his ass is canned. Like, there's no joke about that. So he's doing this, and he hustles hard, whatever. He makes his money. He can brag about it. It's great. Look at someone like Maximilian. You know, Maximilian doesn't play tournaments. He just makes video content. People enjoy it. He's building a brand. He is in a much better position overall because he has established himself as someone that can turn views, that is very likely to get sponsored or picked up by something or someone like Capcom or fucking whatever, you know.
Right.
Whereas the other player, the second he stops winning, the second he is not as popular, the second he pisses people off, the second he does raffles and doesn't give out the prizes,
Yo,
he's
raffles.
done.
Yeah. I mean, it's very volatile, and it's just poor foresight to do something like that. I agree. So, basically what it sounds like is if you are looking to get sponsored and to get better as a player, it should really kind of just be like something you're doing on top of life, like don't don't abandon everything. Don't be like, okay, this is going to be it. I'm just going to put, unless you can afford to somehow and you've saved up, a ton of money and you said, you know what, when everything screws over, I could go back to my job, unless you're in a position like that, it's probably a good idea to not want to pursue it full time. And instead, if you are going to pursue it full time, look for other aspects around it that would kind of keep you afloat, like you said, like Max or some way of creating something,
And it's like, ultimately, think of this as a very, very, very small scale athletic contract. All right. What happens? Everyone talks about the limos and the mansions and this and that pro get. 5 years after they get signed, where are they at? Like, what was it? The 80% of them are broke and they go bankrupt. Yeah. These guys, they work their ass off for a couple of years. They're living the high life. They don't save up. They don't think about their priorities. I know we're young. I don't think about 20 years from now. I think about right now, the immediate moment. But it's wiser to think about what you can get from things like, Broken Tier, it didn't start because I was like, man, I'm going to make some money and do this and that, monopolize the scene and clothing or whatever. It was just like, I just want to do something for fun after my day job.
Yeah.
And it grew. And before Broken Tier, only people that knew me were Guilty Gear. And it just grew into something else. Had I been playing Guilty Gear, nobody would give a crap.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, because I know me and a lot of the guys from like I Play Winner and in the Bay that I talk to, we all really are passionate about Street Fighter and the fighting game community. We do whatever we can. We're not out there winning tournaments and stuff because we just can't, fork over that amount of time. But because we all suck and we just can't put in the time. But we love it, and I try to make it tournaments. I try to produce content with my friends and everybody who is like-minded, but we also have a firm kind of grasp on reality and life. And we realize that kind of pursuing it full time like that it's just going to be a hole, and it's just going to get you in trouble, and you're going to be right back where you started, and now you're going to be looking at the rat race that is life, and you're going to be about 4 years behind everybody. And the kind of prospect of going back to school, of finding a job and going into a job when you're 26, when everybody in the job is that you want is like 12. It's not good, and it's going to be hard, and you don't want to be in that position. You want to have a leg up, or you want to be ready when you kind of move on from fighting games.
Well,
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to be, for anybody out there, I just wanted to be the hope, like the little glimmer of hope. You guys are advocating, you guys are basically saying, don't even try. But I'm going to advocate trying your hardest while still probably like maintaining the day job, but understand that success is guaranteed as far as I'm concerned, at least in terms of the content business, 100% guaranteed. There there is no way that you can fail if you keep if you keep on producing valuable content over the long run, simply because your subscriber base grows and that generates more views, which means you grow more, even if it's incrementally. So I'm an advocate of starting early and being in it for the long run. And I believe that as long as you're playing your cards properly, you can build something that's sustainable, that exists whether or not you're playing, which is exactly what I've done with Cross Counter. And there's no, like, if you can get it to the point, you can, I don't really think you even have to worry about, like, ever having a job or whatever, because I know that I've gotten it to the point where at any point I can say, all right, fuck all this fighting game stuff. I want to go home and be a family man. And because of my position and what I've been able to build, I know that I will never be homeless because I will always be able to get a job if that was what I wanted. But had I not put in the time, I would not have gotten to this point. So if you start early and have faith in the process, you will be able to, I mean, if you should be able to make it through and build it over a period of years.
I don't think anyone's saying don't try, but just be realistic about your abilities, your potential, all that stuff. Think about the future, because I'm even having that same problem thinking about what am I going to do after design, and that's my full-time job. That's actually a real job. So just not try, but just think realistic about your future and your potentials and your abilities.
I kind of touch base about what I said because I think I came off a little bit too negative. And if any of you guys have talked to me in the past, I ramble and I get off on these ridiculous tangents very easily. I'm not a very focused individual. So what I was trying to say is I want people to stop thinking about it from the perspective of I want money, I want this, I want that, and I want them to think about it from the perspective of I'm a player, I'm good at a game, I want to improve myself, right? Because playing a game is, one element of it. And like when you approach this like a business, there's so much you can do. I mean, look at what I have done. Look at what Ryan has done. Look at what I Play Winner does. Look at what Shoryuken does. There's so many things you can do out there. And even if you're not necessarily generating money, you're still learning how to do these things, and they apply to real life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know now from Broken Tier, I used to just do whatever. I never went to college. I went to college for like half a year for art. But now I know how to run a business. I know how to, do accounting. I know how to do all sorts of crap. Because it's just like I just took this little leap of faith and I tried something for the fighting game community and it exploded. But it's like all these dudes that are, writing articles for fighting game stuff. It's like maybe because they're doing that, they get more interested in English. And they are like, well, I really like this. And they discover from this all these other interesting fields that they want to pursue in the future, while they're still playing games, while they're still having fun. And I think that's what I was trying to say is that, like, don't view the fighting game thing as like, I'm going to get my money and this is going to be a long-term thing. Think of it like I play fighting games and I'm going to make some money right now, but then I'm going to learn a bunch of crap too, and I can apply that to business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's so many situations. Like, I think what you're trying to say is that you should be, it's like that JFK quote, right? Like, think not about what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And through taking an interest in fighting games and trying to become more active in the community, there are legit skills that you can learn, practical skills that are applicable not just in business, but also in any sort of field, marketing, technical work. I mean, Cross Counter, the way it stands now, is literally an extension of my technical ability to produce audio podcasts, and the entire thing was born out of that. And the reason that I was able to produce audio podcasts easily is because before that, the ancient history, like I was recording and producing local metal bands that were awful. But compared to recording like a full piece, a full 5-person band, doing an audio podcast was easy, and thus I was able to help produce the Ask Dr. Sub-Zero show, which then I also started helping like edit the Denjin Video podcast, the Family Fun Third Strike ranking battles, which then turned into, doing the Street Fighter podcast, which then turned into like Cross Counter, and then boom, here we are. But it's like I learned all this stuff on the way, and that helped me improve myself incrementally from a technical standpoint. And so there's plenty of groups out there that can use somebody that can do the technical stuff.
Right.
You don't have to be the best, player.
You don't have to. A lot of people out there have talent they don't even really know about, and they will never know unless they explore it. I mean, for me specifically, I had never done anything as far as any sort of public exposure work or any sort of public writing goes. And then I started hanging out at Keystone with Haunts, who had just at the time started up I Play Winner. Like literally that month had started up I Play Winner, and he's like, I need content for the site. Around the same time, he started streaming from Albert's garage, and one night, drunk on a Friday night, grabbed microphones and started talking, and we did it every week. And eventually, that turned into, there I was, being able to commentate the very first Street Fighter Cross Tekken tournament ever streamed. There I was commentating the very first time Daigo played Marvel. I mean, like, big moments that I got to enjoy as a content producer where I just grabbed a microphone one night when I was drunk and found that I really liked it. And then it worked my way 5 years later to into something that I really enjoy doing now, almost as much or if not more so than when I play. I mean, I still love playing. I still go to as many tournaments as possible, but I mean, me personally, it was almost by accident that this sort of thing happened out. So,
yeah, I mean that's a good point, Derry, and I think also as players they need to be really aware of kind of like I think we talked about this a little last podcast too. Is like be aware of what you're also enjoying outside of playing, because like for me, like you said we commentated and that kind of went from one thing. I mean, I was actually in a band before I was really diehard into Street Fighter, so kind of that aspect of commentating was natural to me. But then the more I went to events and the more I talked to different people and met people in business and everything, I learned that I really liked the marketing aspect of it, and I'm kind of doing that in my real life job. So, you really just need to. And Derry, I talked about this to you personally too, is like really use kind of every little networking chance you have and every kind of position you find yourself in the fighting game community, and just think about applying that in real life and outside of it, and then it's going to be a lot easier for you to sustain anything you do in the fighting game community, like Ryan is saying, and I think, Paul, I'm glad you cleared it up and made it sound a little more positive, because I don't think any of us were really saying like, pack it up, that's it. The whole like concept of getting good, getting sponsored is a waste of your time, because that's ridiculous. If you love something, like pursue it, but also just be aware of what you're doing and be conscious of everything else that could happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So, unless anybody has anything poignant they want to add, we're going to wrap it up there tonight. Anybody have any last thoughts?
Let me ask something real quick to Kugi while we still have him on here. In your position and also from other team positions that you've talked to, what are you looking for when you're looking to pick up a player for your team?
If I enjoy watching them play.
I respect that.
That is literally it.
I respect that.
There's nothing more. If I enjoy them playing, if I'm excited to see when they're on the stream, then other people are excited to see them on stream, because I am a jaded individual when it comes to watching streams. I've watched so many streams up to this point. I've seen so many matches in all these years.
So if a guy gets first place in every tournament, that's not going to sway you?
A lot of people ask me why I didn't pick up Chris G, and I said I was never interested in it at all.
Just as a full package, right?
It's it's what I found. A lot of people give me flack for Vassant, and I just want to clear it up and say that with Vassant, the thing that interests me the most about him is that he is extremely intelligent at breaking games down. And he brings a lot to the team that I think nobody really understands. I mean, beyond the blog articles, Jay's the guy that in the hotel room after the tournament, he's the one talking to everyone, breaking down their matches, giving them advice, helping them understand what went wrong, what went right. He's just on top of things. He thinks of things in such a weird way that makes so much sense.
Coach.
He's extremely good at that, yeah. And, he makes calls that, save games for sure. He's not doing so hot because the game changed. But I mean, dude, if Capcom literally took away everything that made you a good player and was like, no, you can't do that anymore, I would probably be a shitty player too. Or
Well,
not doing as well.
Speaking about that, Magus did vote for him as being the most washed up of 2012. Is there anything
Wow.
particularly you want to say?
No, not really. It's I mean,
Why would you bring that up? Like,
Damn, awkward.
why would you even ask that?
dude, I mean, Jay knows, I know that he's not doing as well right now, and that's
Right,
cool.
we
It's
of course,
I mean,
of
it's
course.
just like that's a fact.
Yeah.
It's just he's not doing as well, and that's not a big deal to me personally. I mean, if he stopped going to tournaments and he stopped doing anything with the scene, it would be a different issue for me. But personally, I don't view it as Jay needs to go to tournaments and he needs to win in order to be on Team Broken Tier. There's a lot more to it than just that. My goal with Jay and other people on the team is that I want him to contribute as much as possible to the scene in a positive way and help the scene grow. That is the number one goal, and I think that he's doing a great job with that, with the articles and talking to fans and just being someone that people can ask questions to, and he's always answering them. I mean, if you ever go on Facebook and you're subscribed to his feed, you get the most ridiculous shit. But you can ask him the dumbest questions, and he'll answer them like with 2-paragraph articles.
He's been doing that for a decade too, by the way.
He does it all the time.
Since SRK, he's been doing it forever. He's always been one of my most highly respected posters on SRK.
No,
Well, Magus, did you
I'm
want
not
to
just
respond
I'm not just
or
sucking up. I'm just saying.
apologize?
No, I don't want
No,
to respond.
dude, he doesn't
I
need to
still believe
apologize.
it. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you trying to start some drama and all, but
Damn. Well, speaking of the Horsehead Awards, Cookie, Team Broken Tier took the Horsehead Award for Best Sponsored Team of 2012, and it was a unanimous choice. On the nomination show, on the actual award show, we did not even mention another team. And Mad Catz had a pretty good year if you guys were paying attention last year. One of their players may have won a small amount of money last year. But we all unanimously nominated Broken Tier. How do you feel personally, final question to you tonight, receiving that level of love and respect from the community? I know that maybe, do you ever feel as if, even if you're not at the point where you want to be business-wise, that maybe you're on the right track because of the way that you're getting the response from the community?
yeah, I mean, when I look at my Twitter feed, or when I look at my support emails, or when I do customer surveys or anything, anytime anyone can talk to me, I don't even know the exact word to say. I am just shocked and amazed at how people perceive Broken Tier, and they treat it as if like I am doing God's work or something with it. And it's not like my goal is to do anything special. I just try to treat it like the way I think is right, and it really, I don't know, man. It's a trip. It brings tears to my eyes sometimes, to be completely honest with you. When I go into stream chat, people are just like, Cookie, thank you, or whatever. Like, I get a little bit emotional sometimes.
There's a guy out there that has a Broken Tier tattoo, right? That's
There's actually
legit.
like 4 people now. And the guy, he doesn't have it tattooed on his arm. He has it tattooed on his neck. And you can see it.
That.
And I can't
That's like Slayer.
change my logo because of that. I can't ever redo it. I mean, that would be an insult.
It would.
And
It
I
would be an insult too.
And I actually wanted to redesign the logo and make it symmetrical and not crazy, because it drives me crazy. But I can't, because this dude has it on his neck. And I'm like, all right, well, that's it. That's the logo.
Son of a bitch. Yeah. Look what you
No,
did.
I do have one last question. What is Broken Tier's plans for 2013? What's in the future?
Well, so
Can you give us something?
Yeah, no, of course I can. Well, first of all, I want to say that 2012 personally was a difficult year for me, because I went through like 6 months of just basically depression. I was in a lot of like, I wasn't enjoying what I was doing with Broken Tier because I lost sight of it. I lost sight of it being about, just having fun, playing games. I got so caught up in the drama and the bullshit, and it was like, I feel a lot of players are in that mode. A lot of people, you'll see them being like, man, the FGC changed. And I felt like, man, it did change, or I changed, or something changed. And I was like, recently I came out of it, and I feel a lot better because one, I stopped giving a shit about the drama, and I stopped watching the Long Island streams, and I stopped watching and listening to people who caused drama, and I removed all that shit from my Twitter feed, and I just got rid of everything. And all of a sudden, everything was better. And I was like, this is why I like the scene. I like going to Evo and seeing people having fun and getting hype and watching streams, and not streams where people are just, disenchanted and bored. I like watching like hype stuff like the Curly Mustache series. And
You get Paul. You know what?
Sorry.
I really feel you on that, man. I mean, 2012. I don't want to get personal because mine's not something I could talk about, but it was the worst year of my life, probably. But when you also have whatever you're doing in your life, and then you have this kind of negativity packed on top of it that you just seeing, and it's just so petty and worthless, it really makes you doubt any you're doing, and you're just like, why am I doing this when this is the kind of reception I'm getting? This is what I'm a part of. And when you remove that negativity from your life and you surround yourself with positive people and kind of become more of a positive person, it really changes the perspective and makes kind of everything easier to move forward with.
So to get back to the original question about the future for BT and everything, the first step is refining it. I have really gotten behind on designs. I don't think I've released a new design in like 3 months. And I found that I really enjoy certain aspects of the business and not so much other aspects. So I'm going to try to, just like a fighting game player, optimize it and fix the problems. And there's a lot of parallel between running a business, playing a fighting game. I mean, it's like anything, I guess, but I've realized now how to fix it. And I have built a support network to help me cope with some of the difficulties of running a, one-man army of a business where I have 5 players on a team, and I'm shipping shirts by myself, and I'm, working 16-hour days. Like, now I'm able to cope with it. And so now I'm really looking forward. Recently we started working with Esteban Martinez, who does Hold Back to Block, doing videos, released our first promo. And I think that promo is the first goal that I had for the year was to make something like that and to really get Broken Tier back on track. And I'll link it in the chat for you guys so that you can see if you haven't seen it already. But it's like I want to make the fighting game scene better, and I'm going to do that by continuing to do Broken Tier and using the funds from Broken Tier to run tournaments, to to sponsor players that I enjoy watching, that other people enjoy watching. I'm going to try to just do some crazy shit and help the scene. That's it.
Well,
you got our support.
Oh, and I just want to shout out the dude in the chat saying that I get caught up in drama and I'm a bitch. If your day job was to watch everything that happens in the scene every day, you get caught up in it too. So have fun with that one.
Blowed up. Let me I think we have the perfect guy on tonight to close it out with, touching on the fighting game community positivity. I'll instead close out with Gutex. Going into 2013, you've been doing a lot of motivational work with your personal productions and broadcasts lately. Do you have any advice for guys who want to focus more on the positivity, transformation, and content side of the community going into this new year, my friend?
Sure, yeah. Like Paul said, removing the negativity, and also like Andrew said, removing the negativity and the negative people in your life and just focusing on producing quality work, I think will get you far. I mean, it sucks that at the beginning, this is like the content creator's dilemma, right? When you start, you put all this time and effort into making this thing, and you put it out, and it gets like 10 views on it, and you're like, wow, I spent half a day on this shit, and now I gotta go to work, or I gotta go to school, or whatever. What was the point of spending all that time in order to get like 10 views? So I guess if you want to feel better about that and yet still continue producing, then what I would suggest is spending less time on production, such that you're able to crank stuff out quicker, because it doesn't matter at the beginning. Because at the beginning, it's not going to be very good and not very many people are going to see it. But if you keep at it, and you're not spending a ridiculous amount of time on something that's not going to get a lot of response, you don't feel so bad. Like, oh, if I spend 10 minutes on a video and it gets 10 views, like, oh, okay, whatever, that's not that big of a deal, compared to spending like all day. But it really also comes down to like networking and building relationships with people that can help you achieve your goals, because none of this can be done by yourself. I mean, if you look at somebody like Hans, right? Like Hans built a team of people that was able to build the iPlay Winner brand. It's not just like a one-man show. Now Kugi is bringing on additional help in order to help him run the aspects of the business that he doesn't enjoy, right? Like I have a team of people. I have a team of people for the website, for the store, for Cross Counter Live, for bar fights. It's like you have to understand that building yourself up and building relationships is the only way that you're going to be able to get stuff done. And hopefully that helps everybody stay more positive.
Yeah, there's another thing about the content process I would like to talk about, is that I know there's a lot of people that just don't understand even how to like start the content or create that content because they're not familiar with video editing programs or capturing or anything else like that.
Yeah, but that's such a cop-out.
I don't know anything about it, man. I am really not tech savvy.
You guys have a suggestion for those who want that?
Yes, it's easy. Take responsibility. Like nobody is born knowing how to edit video. Nobody was born knowing how to like do Photoshop. But if you, with the exception of you, it's like you have to understand that it's like playing a fighting game. Like, whoa, like were you like a guile expert the first time you played Street Fighter? No, like you put time in and you like learn the moves, you learn your frame data, you practice in training mode, you do all that stuff. Well, like producing content is no different, and there's no excuses. Get out there. Get your ass to the Pirate Bay, download Photoshop, download Final Cut, do whatever you got to do, beg, borrow, steal to get computer time, whatever. Like, go to the computer lab, take responsibility for improving yourself, and then you will become more useful to those around you. Or alternatively, you can just network until you find somebody that will work with you.
I just wanted to add one thing. The greatest piece of advice I've ever read, anywhere on the internet in regards to business was there's a graphic designer named Kyle Crawford. He runs the Electric Zombie brand, which is one of my favorite clothing lines. He's a huge source of inspiration in terms of being a total asshole, and the way he treats customers is ridiculous. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. What he said when I here, I never talked. I just read forums, was people would come up to him and ask him, how do I get started making clothing, or how do I get started? And it's the same shit every single time. You tell people and they don't actually follow through. And he basically just said, look, here's how you do it, is you fucking Google it. Is you want to do something, you find out how to do it. Nobody held my hand. Nobody helped me get to where I'm at now. I learned everything on my own. And ultimately, that sounds really harsh. And at first I was really put off by it. And I was like, wow, what a fucking asshole. But what I learned from it is by doing that, I learned so much more that I can sustain myself. I don't need to go to Kyle Crawford every time I want to get advice. I figured it all out on my own. And because of that, I'm a better businessman now. So if you want to do something, if you have a passion in something, if you want to be the best fighting game player and you want to beat Chris G, stop asking questions, stop trolling forums, start researching and learning. If you want to make video content, like Gutek said, it's not that hard. Research tutorials, look at what everyone else is doing and copy it, and not copy it directly like verbatim, but like look at the little cues that they leave, like they have an intro video opener, then they close it out at the end. They have a click to subscribe button. It's not that hard. I don't know anything about YouTube, and I started the Broken Tier YouTube in like 3 weeks. I had almost 5,000 subscribers because I just paid attention. And everyone can do the same thing.
Yeah, so everybody has to take responsibility for bettering themselves and setting goals for themselves.
Yes, and you can do anything. I am not making that up. I'm not saying it just to fucking be a motivational speaker. If you want to learn to skydive, you can learn to skydive. If you want to run a multi-million-dollar company, you just got to think about it a lot, and try to apply yourself in the direction that you want to go, and not get yourself beat down or make excuses as to why you can't do it, because you can do it. It's just, it might take longer. You might not be very lucky in the beginning, but you'll learn.
Well, on that note, we're going to close out for the evening. On that note as well, I just want to send a quick shout out to all of the content producers in the community who are still hustling after all this time, the guys who are maybe just on that cusp or have been struggling in the shadows for a long time. Shout outs to groups like Finest KO. Shout outs to groups out there who are making content every day for you guys to enjoy. And then individual producers like Hanzo Gonzo who are out there making good content every day. So shout outs to the content producers out there.
Oh,
hustling.
can I shout out a content producer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Southside Noobs makes the best Street Fighter Cross Tekken tutorials that I have seen.
Right on.
And these guys don't put out enough stuff. So I just wanted to urge everybody to check out their stuff and bug these guys for more stuff. 'Cause
On
these guys
that
are
note,
really good.
If you are at home listening to the program and you have an article idea, or you create video content, or if you have an idea for something that you think other people would enjoy, you can always submit your content to iPlayWinner. Get in touch with our producers via Twitter or Facebook or the website. There's contact links all over. We are not a closed-off group. There are ways for you to break in. If you're watching, if you're writing, if you're paying attention, and you want to get involved, you can get involved. Thank you to my panel tonight. Thank you to Paul Kugler from Broken Tier. You can follow his business side at Broken Tier on Twitter, and you can follow his personal side at Koogie Please on Twitter. Shout outs to Gutex, aka Ryan Gutierrez. You can follow him at Gutex. Martin Blake, you can follow at Blu-ray. Martin is a content producer in his own right. If you need overlays for your streams, or if you need some work done on your website, you can hit up Martin Blake on Twitter at Blu-ray. And then Magus1234, the always stylish, you can follow on Twitter at Magus1234. If you'd like to do me a personal favor, you can follow Chris Seglia, our producer, on Twitter at Chris Seg, although I don't really think Chris hurts for work because he does production for the 49ers and the Giants, which, by the way, going into Sunday, last question of the night, everybody's picks for the Super Bowl. Martin Blake, your pick.
I'm going to go with the Ravens just to see how pissed off San Francisco would be.
Gutex, your pick.
I didn't know it was this weekend.
Who your pick?
The commercials.
The commercials, right on. Magus, do you even care?
The Niners, baby. Come on, I grew up in the 90s. Remember Cowboys? I want the Niners. Let's go. One more time.
Steve Young in the building.
Yes, I still remember.
That's it for this week. If you didn't catch the early part of the program, you can always catch our replay on YouTube at youtube.com/iPlayWinner. Catch us next week at the same time, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Thursday. Until then, my name is Derry. Peace out.
Bye.